So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition here at the Our Jimmy Experience podcast, where we delve into grassroots music and beyond and tell stories and find interesting people that are on an amazing journey that I just want to share with you all. Okay, so I'm standing like this a little bit today because I'm in a different position. I've got one of those desks that move up. So if throughout this interview, if you see me starting to bob down or out like that, it's my desk that moving because I don't think it's set up right, and the desk could move at any time. Anyway, I divulge. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week here at the RGM podcast, and I'm here with an amazing band that I've just got loads of stuff to tell us about. It's Tyler and Kane from Vivas. Hello, boys.
Hey, Carl, you all right?
Yeah, I don't know why I started telling people that I've got a new table that goes up and down, but you live and learn, don't you?
I found it quite interesting, to be fair. I was,
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on
Well,
quite
well,
a
I'll,
take.
I'll tell you all about it. It's because I work from home because I want to move about a bit more and that just on this table and that. So I've got this connection thing and it moves up and down, but it's got a mind of its own. When you
Yeah,
say it's right delayed, so I don't know if it's going to move. So if anything shifts, it's if you just see me bobbing about, there we go.
that leaves elegant.
Anyway, guys, you've been on a bit of a journey, and I've just seen all these big, amazing stages that you've been playing recently. So I thought we'll get you on the podcast. We'll have a chat about it. So how are you doing in general, guys?
yeah, not bad, thanks. Had some decent gigs recently, obviously. Had some good laughs, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, when you've got stages that we've played on recently, the ones that you've been referring to, the Bramall Lane and Lytham Festival,
Yeah.
two stages, actually it's all the stuff in between that kind of, when that comes together, that makes it feel like really, really, worthwhile. And those are the memories that you always tend to make. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, they looked amazing, and we're going to talk about all of those because I'm fascinated to hear about all that. They're just being on those stages is just amazing, isn't it? But the last time we had a chat, you was under a different name, Crossfire Eagles, ages ago. You've had a bit of a rebrand since then. So just talk us through the reason for, and it's an important stage in a band's career as well to discuss, I think, and the reasons why bands do this type of thing. So you drop the old band name, things changed, bit of an image change. Things have just changed for you completely, really. It looks like, anyway. Just talk me through why you decided to change things around a little bit.
well, from COVID, it was a case of, we had a lot of time to think about a lot of things, to be fair. It's the same with everybody else.
Mm.
But I think the big thing is that we just sort of, when we started out, we were kind of just moshing ideas together. We're just sort of like individuals as a band. We didn't really have any distinct sound or sort of direction, if that makes sense. Whereas obviously now, at the stage that we are, I think we know exactly who we are and where we're going. And I think when we actually had the name change, we wanted something that was going to reflect us and our vision, if that makes sense. So the first few years, like for example, the previous name, Crossfire Eagles, that was more of a case of just trying to find a feet in terms of basically learning the ropes, if you like, and then, finding exactly who we are, and then have a name that fits it, essentially, and then just brand yourselves on that.
Mm. How do you feel about it, Kane?
Yeah, well, I actually came into the band quite late, just before the kind of rebrand and sort of deciding everything to change in the direction it did. I think it was definitely a wise idea, just because of the whole like the name, and like it was a good name, but it didn't kind of suit, I think, the style of music we were trying to aim at, or the kind of demographic of people. So I thought it was a good decision in kind of stepping in the right direction and showing people who we want to be, rather than kind of just be like, okay, this is the name. And obviously a lot of bands kind of stick with a name, but we thought it was probably a good idea to reimagine ourselves. And
Because of course you learn a lot of things, to be fair, so you kind of need to be thrown in the deep end a little bit.
yeah,
And then it felt right to just have the name change and sort of reset and take
start
everything
fresh.
that we've learned and basically just go
Start from
ham,
the ground
really.
running, I think, was nice. Like with with a rebrand, just knowing what we were doing a bit and being like, okay, let's start afresh. we kind of have a bit of an idea, and then we could definitely start a lot stronger, which was quite cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's nice, isn't it? It's just nice. You can just, and it's just a nice time just to stop doing that and just, start again and do something completely different. So you mentioned there, Kane, that you can be who you want to be. Who are you? Like, what is Vivas? What is your what are you trying to achieve with this thing?
If I could probably describe
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. We wanted something high energy, something that kind of stuck on the tongue nicely, and was just like a high energy, positive, kind of like friendly band that you can kind of get down with and be like, okay, this is something I can get behind. And I think that name and that image that we've kind of set ourselves shows that we're not only professional, but we're there just like everyone else to write good music, to have a good time.
Yeah.
We want people to obviously have a good time with us. So.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing, is that, whoever comes and sees us or listens to us, it's, it's a positive outcome at the end of it, even if it's just listening to one of our songs once.
Yeah.
Essentially across all boards, it's just a case of us being taken seriously on all fronts, really. So yeah, more or less that's what it is.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I think it was a good idea to do it, and you've grown so much just with the size of your audiences and things since doing it. So how do you find how have you found these larger audiences so quickly since the rebrand? How talk me through that process.
I think, do you know what,
it's very natural.
It was, yeah, because ultimately it was a different shift in mentality. So like, essentially, if you wanted to, be taken seriously, you've got to do things more serious. So like, it's not a case of trying too hard or being, too in the faces of people. It's literally just trying to get on a wavelength that people can relate with. So when we've initially reformed, so like last year, essentially we tried to give up or get as much hype as possible. We didn't have much. In fact, when we played Sydney Matilda, when we played that last year, we didn't have any songs out. We had like Sweet Talker out, and that was about it. It was just a case of trying to build ourselves up as much as possible to people, making it very accessible to people as well, because we were charging like £5 a ticket, which is easy money sort of thing. It's a £5 a note. If that makes sense. So it's a case of then, when you've got that foundation, it's about keeping the ball rolling. I think one thing we've done is, we like to think we've done that quite well, to be fair. And it's just
always try to do one step more with everything we do. I think it's good trying to one up ourselves and having a clear end target and slowly chipping away. I think it's nice, and things have kind of progressed really steadily. Nothing majorly, like in terms of like leaps and bounds. We haven't had any like one hit wonders or anything, but everything's kind of grown slowly together, and I think that's quite nice to see, that like everything we're doing is at least being kind of not just recognized, but everyone's kind of getting along with it and enjoying it, which is nice.
Yeah, well, it was good to see, because I came to see you down at the Lead Mill, sold out Lead Mill, the legendary venue in our hometown, Sheffield. It's just to have that on your CV must have been nice.
Yeah, it's because obviously thunder and lightning here, by the way. But,
yeah, if people can hear it here, it's going to happen here. So I'm just seeing a flash.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's one of the things you always think of, but you never think of actually doing it,
or being able to do.
Essentially, it's more of a case of just taking it seriously. Not, like I say, not in the case of where you're trying too hard, but just a case of people are going to want to come and see you because it's you guys, rather than just doing it for a favor, if that makes sense.
Nothing was guaranteed either. It was all 100% making sure we did things properly, making sure we're asking as many, like trying to get as many tickets sold as possible, getting people to sell tickets to friends, and actually trying to build something. And it could have gone upside down and could have failed miserably, but I feel like we put the effort in, we put the groundwork in, and it paid off. And I think from then, obviously the ball rolls, and then get
It does,
bigger.
doesn't it? And it can happen quite quick. Once you sell out one show, because I know we had you on in Manchester at the Castle. We ended up selling that one out, and you had a few other dates on that tour at that time. How many years ago was that? It feels like about 10 years ago. I bet it was about 6 months ago or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it feels like
something less than a year, weren't it?
yeah, it feels like 6 years, but it was actually
It's mad, isn't it?
Half a
months.
year ago, yeah. It's crazy.
It really is.
A lot happens.
Manchester's a good night out, by the way. That was the first time properly, in terms of a gig setting, that was a really good, vibe. That it was good.
Yeah, Manchester's good.
Yeah. I read an interesting stat the other day, and it was from a big national promotion company. They were surprised that ticket sales in Manchester are lower than like Leeds and Sheffield at the minute, where historically they've always been at the top for people going out and seeing gigs. So there's definitely something happening in the air around people really struggling with the cost of living crisis. They're just going out once a month or whatever, or when they do go out, they might splash out a bit and go to one of the big arena tours and that kind of stuff where it's £100. And they are kind of leaving out grassroots music a little bit. It feels like, particularly here in Manchester. How do you feel that at your level? Are you feeling that as a new band?
I think it's about showing off the qualities of grassroots music. So, grassroots music majority of them are small venues, so like max 200 or something like that, where you can actually see the whites of people's eyes. And if you get the right vibe and energy, that can be more powerful than just going to like an arena or even a stadium show where there's lots of open space. And if you go and see Harry Styles, and you're up in the gods, Harry Styles is about that big. You can't really have the same connection. So I think it's about doing it properly on grassroots level, where you're more intimate.
Every gig kind of has a lot more weight to it, because every person that goes is a potential future fan. And like, if you can take one or two from every gig you play, like, they only need to tell a friend, and that multiplies very quickly, and then people hear more, people share more. And
it's all about the connection, though, whether it's in front of 5, 10, 15,000 people or just 5 people. It's just it doesn't have to be at a certain place. It's just the chemistry between artist and audience.
But you need to get them in to have that connection, though, don't you? And that's where the problem is. The people just aren't going out as much. I'm just seeing it a lot more here and feeling it as putting bands on myself here in Manchester, where everything's last minute because people aren't deciding what they want to do in advance for grassroots music. I'm just wondering if being young lads out there, gig goers yourself, away from the band, I'm just wondering if you've seen it or felt it amongst your friends.
I go to a lot of grassroots gigs in terms of Leadmill, Sydney Matilda, the Sheffield sort of venues. And I think, to be fair, there are a lot of people that are making last minute decisions just because they've got to weigh up, what's worth it and what's not worth it. So, bands don't often promote months and months in advance. So if you're trying to promote a show all within a space of like a couple of weeks, even if people don't know what they're doing, they'll just back out, sort of thing, because it's too close to the date. So it's awkward because people, it's money at the end of the day, and ultimately, if you're a grassroots artist, you've got to do more to try and get those people in. That's a fact.
Yeah, I think I've been quite strict with the bands that I've had on at RGM Live, because it's quite worrying when you've spent a few £100 to hire a venue, and maybe 10 days before there's you're on 2 or 3 sales, and it's just right, okay, here we go. You've kind of got to hold your nerve a lot more at the minute and just pray for the best. And it kind of does work out. I've not lost money yet. I've been very close. But money's a horrible thing to talk about sometimes, but I live in the real world, and you can't keep doing gigs losing money, because it's just not going to continue.
Another thing that I've noticed actually is it's the type of band you work with as well. So if you've got a band that toss it off, they're not taking it seriously, they're not going to sell that many tickets because they're not that bothered. But if you get a band that's, you know, more on it, a bit more professional in terms of how they act and deal with, it's ultimately good. That gig's going to be ended up selling up a lot more just because of how they act and, you know, present themselves.
But bands bullshit to you though. They say they'll say, oh, how many did you sell in the last gig? Oh, I sold 50 easy. Gets to the gig on 2, and it's just like
it is all about actions and words, to be fair. So,
yes, too right. Yeah.
It's about wheeling your way through those, you know, the bullshit, really.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you know, from my point of view for RGM, I want to give these kids a chance because I see us as a stepping stone to like the bigger promoters and that kind of stuff. Because I'll always stay grassroots. I can't be bothered with dealing with managers and agents and all that kind of shit. I just want to stay at grassroots and help bands and get them stage time. So I'm kind of like, I don't like ask loads of questions at the beginning. Maybe I should, because I want to be that person that can go through the RGM gigs and move on to the bigger gigs, because I must have had 50 bands that have like gone on to bigger and better things. Well, when I say better, I mean bigger things, really, bigger stages and wider audiences and that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm putting myself down. I don't know, but it's just really tough out there at the minute. I just like to talk about, you know, the reality of how things are at the minute. That's all. That's it. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a delicate subject, to be fair, though. Like, you know, if a ticket's if it's 10 quid a ticket, ultimately you're not going to go on your own, so you're going to bring somebody else. That's 20 quid, and that's like, you know, a big chunk of a weekly shop, if that makes sense. So, it's a lot to weigh up, and it is sad at the moment, really sad.
Yeah, so it's just away from the gigs and the doom and gloom, and because it's not all doom and gloom, you know. What's the biggest thing that you've learned from somebody in the industry after rebranding and starting again? Talk us through what, you know, what's really hit home and true with you, that you've stuck with and it's kind of worked for you as well.
I think it's just like manipulating what you want, really. We've always been told kind of if you want something, either the whole like mentality of obviously fake it till you make it, but in a not a literal sense, but kind of you've got to act the part to be the part. Obviously we've rebranded, we've kind of got a set style, we have like almost set outfits now that we have on stage, and we
suits and that nice one.
Yeah.
In the more suits lately. Nice one.
Yeah,
back to school trousers and stuff.
Yeah. Shopping in George. But I think it sets a tone, and it really kind of like puts us in the right direction of what we want to do. And I think that's what it is, kind of being what you want to be and then sticking with it, because you kind of can't just be like, okay, eventually we'll do this and we'll sell out these shows, and like you've almost got to put yourself in the deep end and be like, right, we need to be professional, we need to do these things, and then kind of manifest them into reality by just like
did you go about choosing your new image then? That must have been funny.
I think we just randomly decided, was it not?
Yeah, we kind of wanted to tone it down, so, you know, ultimately we're not sort of leaning into any sort of corner, if you like.
Yeah.
It was only this year, so right at the beginning of the year we wanted a photo shoot to really define basically the look, and you can probably tell we've gone for a bit more of a, you know, naturally, to be fair, a bit more of like an Arctic Monkeys AM kind of era vibe.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps good or bad, you know, people could be the judge of that.
Yeah.
But
plenty of bands have wore suits before the Arctic Monkeys, and it's worked for them.
Oh,
yeah.
Resonated with it.
That used to be the done thing, though. Just like suits and smart attire. Yeah.
It's better than fucking leather jacket stood against a wall, isn't it? All that bollocks.
Yeah, we want
especially if you're not James Dean. If you're not James Dean, just don't bother.
I think it was more the thing just having an image rather than just rocking up in kind of t-shirts and jeans all the time, and it's not, almost no one takes you seriously when we go on stage now and we're all dressed smart and we kind of stick to the same thing. People kind of look at us and they're like, okay, they take this seriously. This is the band that knows what they're doing. We're representing ourselves with that image, like immediately kind of setting a good tone from the start, I think.
I think the biggest advice, to be fair, I've got, you know, as an individual, just stay in control of what you can. Like, don't just, sell yourself to the next promoter or just the next nobody, if that makes sense, because there's more people that don't know what they're doing than people that actually do know what they're doing, especially at this level, because ultimately we're all out here to, a lot of people actually just get some money, really, and that's perfectly fine, because we all need it.
Yeah, it's our job.
But it's about knowing people to stay away from, and
who's there for your best interest and who's there for themselves.
Yeah. But ultimately, it's about what works for ourselves, and if that's a maybe or a no, then the answer. If that makes sense.
That's good advice. Yeah, could just kind of just know your own value as well, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the main
thing. To be fair, a lot of it is time. We only have so many hours in a day, unless you're Molly May, but we only have so many hours in a day where we can spend and put our energy into certain things, and if certain things aren't worth it, you've got to prioritize certain things, really.
Yeah, well, we're going to come on to the big gigs very soon, but just before we stay band related, I wanted to introduce the people that are new to Vivas to you guys and get to know your personalities a little bit more. And I love asking this question. I do tend to ask it quite a lot, but bear with me. So tell us something about each individual person within the band that you think we, the audience, will be surprised about. So, and let's start with the people that aren't here.
James and Keaton are wearing invisibility cloaks.
Okay,
You're not
having that one. I'm not letting you have that one.
Yes, that's a really good question, actually.
That's why I like it so much. I keep asking it. It's interesting. And the reason, the first time I asked it was years ago when I asked Johnny Brown, and he says he was right into ice skating. I just found that fascinating. So I thought, yeah, it's a good question.
I think one that's kind of about both of them at the same time, in terms of their personalities, definitely. Considering James, obviously lead singer, frontman, and James being behind the drums, their personalities are kind of switched in that sense. Keaton's definitely more the extroverted one, definitely a lot chatty, a lot more confident, and then James is quite modest, very reserved.
Yeah, having said that though, Keaton's really laid back, considering.
Yeah,
both.
He's the opposite of what you'd expect a drummer to be. Drummer's normally the wild one, very.
I kind of mean away from the band, though. Something away from the band. It's just somebody juggle or something like that. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff I want. I want something completely different that you think we're completely surprised about and putting you under pressure. I know, and we can come back to this as well.
You underestimate how boring we all are, to be honest.
Okay.
What about Keaton? Because I know he works in an escape room.
Here we go.
So he's. I mean, he's on
escape
call.
Artist.
He's an escape artist, but I don't know what the interview process for someone who works in an escape room. You just go to an escape room.
People in rooms.
Yeah, exactly. How do you send your CV in for that one? It's it's like the interview process. You've got to try and get out of the room and stuff.
Have to be a zombie or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's easy for them, but it's easy. For James,
the wasps.
Oh yeah, his biggest fear is wasps. Wasps like bees or anything that flies like that.
If it buzzes and flies.
Does he lose his shit when a little fly comes into the room and that? And...
When we practice, part of the reason why he plays his guitar and obviously sings is obviously because we need some rhythm. But the other thing is that he uses it as a bit of a weapon against those wasps and flies.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got a big fear of those. Yeah. I don't know why that came to our heads first, but
no, I like it. Because he wears his guitar quite high up, like John Lennon, doesn't he? So is that why? So he can.
Yeah,
he's always got that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, and then you two have got to say one about each other, but not.
Oh,
you do your own if you get.
Is really into, racing, go-karting, and racing.
Oh, nice.
He is properly quick.
Probably competitive. I'd argue I'm just so set on not losing that I'd rather take my arms and legs than lose.
Are you that passionate about it that it's not fun? It's just proper. You're all out war. You've got to win. Are you that kind of person?
I still have fun, but I'm willing to lose a couple bones to not lose.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
right, okay.
I'm willing to go into a wall at 50 miles an hour if it means that I don't lose.
Oh no. Go on then. What we're going to say about our Tyler?
Oh,
I've really made a big impression on him.
Yeah, you've done it to me, to be fair. I mean, on the similar lines, you're a massive football person, to be fair. Obviously, sport.
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, Kane is as well. You know, I'm a Wednesday fan, Sheffield Wednesday fan, and Kane's an Arsenal fan.
Why do you support Arsenal?
You've seen where we are at the minute. We're absolutely smashing it.
You're in Sheffield, mate.
Yeah, I'm not from Sheffield originally. So.
Oh, fair enough. I didn't know that. Oh, go on. Are you from London?
Lincolnshire.
Okay. Right, okay. Connections to Arsenal.
No, my friends supported them in school, and I just kind of I wasn't really into football.
Yeah, okay.
Football, and I just kind of went with it, and I've stuck with it since I was like 10 or 11. So it's just having it. And obviously Tyler's from Sheffield, so
yeah, it's possible.
Sheffield/Dublin. I was born in Dublin, but yeah. Over there though, the sports are like Gaelic football and hurling and stuff like
that. It's not quite Wednesday, is it?
Each to their own and that, but it's not as good as football, is it?
No. Football's the one.
I think we won't get cancelled for that kind of stuff. It's not too bad, is it? Just talking about what sport.
Not a controversial opinion, I don't think.
You've got to be careful these days. Jesus Christ, especially with YouTube just banning everybody for having opinions. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
do you worry about that kind of stuff, saying the wrong thing sometimes on on videos and that kind of stuff? Do you ever think about that kind of stuff just out of interest?
I think we're quite sensible people. Again, we're not too.
I feel like I'd be the most prone, but then again,
I think it's just because you're very quite honest. You'll always say things to people's faces.
This is the thing. The thing is, people tend to vote with their feet, so they don't really say exactly how they feel. They kind of just let the feet and actions do the talking. So, for example, I was on a holiday recently this year. I was with the family. Basically, we were all at this dinner table, and to be honest, the food was crap. Really bad. Everyone said it was crap around the table, and it was the waiter came back after obviously we'd finished and stuff, and he said, "How was your food?" And everyone said, "Oh, it was all right." No, it was
okay, here we go. The time.
And I turned around and I said, "Not seasoned enough." It's and all that rubbish.
Table. It was it's outrageous. I'm not fully.
But the thing is, I'm quite honest. So if you ask me a question on something, I will just give an honest answer with respect. I won't just trash talk you.
Oh yeah.
But I will just say, what I honestly think. But
I think
without trying to insult someone, if that makes sense.
Get the right people around you in that way, and you're not kind of having people that are kind of afraid to be told the truth. So I think it's good.
Yeah. Do you fear stuff like that, Carl?
I do, because I've got a bit of a gob. I've learned over the years to probably just how to ask certain questions a certain way without it sounding like it's my opinion. So you can kind of skirt around things a little bit and do it. I do think about it. I'm not necessarily worried about it, because I follow the lead from comedians, and we have quite a lot of comedians on the show where they're just like, "Oh, fuck that, I'll just say what I want." And I'm kind of inspired by that and inspired by them, because comedians, when they make jokes, they do it very cleverly. It's not like they're making a statement; they're telling a story about what somebody else said. So they've got a loophole on it all. So they say things quite cleverly, and it's quite interesting just to see how comedians and people in the comedy world lead the way down the mine, holding the canary into this new world we live in, just saying what they want and just seeing them, negotiate their way through all these different topics and everything else we've got to, talk about in this world. I'm not mentioning specific things just for because can't be bothered, but I'm just inspired by these people that you can say what you want, but you've got to be accountable for what you say as well. So I suppose over the years I've kind of learned to respect that a little bit more, I suppose. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're a Wednesday fan, mate?
Yeah.
How did you feel about playing the home of football, Bramall Lane? Let's get on to that. Right. Okay. So I've got.
That's the way playing
This
into
is
it.
this
Yeah,
is
no,
where
this is where,
Yeah.
here we go. So just getting the opportunity. So I know during Crossfire Eagles, when we've had a chat before, when you played at Frog and Parrot and that kind of stuff, you didn't really want to talk about who your dad were and that kind of stuff. But now, before the interview, I asked you to see if it's okay to talk about it, and you're more comfortable, talking about it. So, playing Bramall Lane, supporting Def Leppard, you tell us your story and the links between all that kind of stuff. You do it your way.
Yeah, to be fair, like we've been prodding along obviously since the back end of also the start of last year, and to be fair, like it ended up being obviously my dad's come and seen us a few times, but it ended up being my dad just asking, "Do you fancy doing it?" It was actually Lytham that he asked us about first. So I was, do you know what? Actually, with both Lytham and Bramall Lane, it wasn't like a straight yes. I know that sounds really weird because obviously it's a great opportunity, and it's a once in a lifetime sort of thing for a lot of people. So with me sort of undecided, it was a case of the type of people that would go to the show. So one thing I do know is that we're not like Def Leppard, or we're not like Crew, so we didn't want to be sort of a fish out of water, and then all of a sudden
giving ourselves bad rep for the sake of the show
a little bit.
So we had to kind of be careful.
But to be fair, my dad said, shouldn't even worry about it. It's just a case of literally warming it. For the Bramall Lane gig, it's just a case of warming both bands up. And, ultimately, it's still rock and roll music, even though it's more sort of indie based, UK based sort of sound. And ultimately, if people don't like you, they'll forget about you pretty quickly just because they're there to see Def Leppard and Motley Crue. But if they do like you, they will look out for you a bit more, if that makes sense. And that was the same with Lytham, because Lytham it's not like Download or anything. Yeah. It's more sort of a neutral sort of festival. So you had like George Ezra, Lionel Richie, etc. But yeah, to be fair, with a bit of convincing, to be fair, it did become a no-brainer after a while. But obviously, you want to make sure that those things are right, just because you don't want to just say yes and take the opportunity if it's actually going to be a negative thing. Because actually, with those amount of people that are going to be in front of you, if you make a bad impression with the majority of the people, that's quite bad. That is quite bad.
Yeah, we had to make sure we were smart about it, doing things in the right way.
Yeah, so if you don't aware, because you haven't said it yet, Tyler, but Rick from Leppard is your dad.
Yes.
Right. So if anybody didn't know, obviously opportunities and having a fucking rock and roll Hall of Fame legend as your dad must have certain perks, and it's nice to see you embrace some of the perks, because I know over years you've wanted to not kind of mention it and do it your own way. I suppose is that fair?
Yeah, I mean I've got a big problem with just sort of being seen as sort of lying on my backside and just let him basically just go into my dad saying, I want this, want that, can we get this? And because ultimately, people see right through that, and ultimately they don't want to help you. So for example, when we were Crossfire Eagles, even though I wanted nothing, like I still wanted to distance myself a little bit, I don't think we would have been offered the same opportunities back then as we are now, just because I think we've done a lot of work ourselves. So like, we're practicing really regularly. We're doing all the right things essentially, and the right people are seeing that. So that's why it was a real honour to actually get asked, because I didn't ask or inquire about it, just because ultimately we're happy with where we're going, but something like that's a once in a lifetime thing. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I do know that it comes with a bit of responsibility, just because people are just going to assume, oh, you've got certain contacts, etc. But it's like, if you put it into a football perspective, you wouldn't see Jose Mourinho manage Rotherham United. It just doesn't match up. Because you're working with top end, or people at the top end of the business. They wouldn't be able to really help you too much, just because that's not their level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that, I think people sometimes get, have a bit of a misunderstanding with that, just because ultimately they think it's all just in one boat, and it's just
there's stages to it.
Yeah,
obviously,
there is.
as you know yourself. Obviously, we've got to make our own way so far, and ultimately, if we were obviously big enough, we probably could be helped. There's obviously people we could know, but the majority of the work has to be. It's all us. Like we have to make our own way, just like everyone else. So.
How was the Bramall Lane gig communicated to you all then?
Yeah,
like all good gigs.
Like it was literally my dad coming through the door saying, "Oh, do you fancy doing it?"
Yeah,
it was literally just like that, and I was like, I was trying. Thing is, when he asked me, I was trying to say nice and contained so I could actually think about it. But you see the prospects of actually doing it and the benefits of it, and you feel a bit like a kid inside, essentially. So, yeah, and then obviously I got back to my dad and said, all the rest of the guys are fine with it. Seems like a great opportunity, etc. And then obviously a more of a formal offer came in, etc. So it was more of a case of like asking and seeing like sort of more a verbal agreement, and then you get like a more formal contract, as it were. But essentially that's what.
Kane, tell us what it was like for the rest of the lads just to get that message from Tyler saying, fancy playing Bramall Lane in front of fucking 20,000 people.
Yeah, honestly, it was out of the blue because none of us expected it. I imagine it probably less than us. It was just a random message in like the middle of afternoon. Yeah. So I think we've been asked to play Bramall Lane. It's like, all right.
I do remember.
Good one, mate.
I do remember. I put it in such a
casual way. You were just like, oh yeah. The managers asked if we want to play Bramall Lane. We were just like, yeah, I'll be up for that. That sounds all right. I could do that. That sounds like a good weekend to me. Yeah, it was
such an amazing opportunity, and I can see, just watching the video, the backstage video that you made. It was just fantastic, just to see you on stage, sound checking and that kind of stuff, and then, just seeing the crowd fill up, and it was 3/4 full when you guys played, weren't it? And usually when you see somebody starting off, there might be just like 1,000 people in a big arena, and it looks like nobody's there. But it was really busy, weren't it, when you guys played? Just talk us through the day of that gig. So what did you do when you got up? Did you were it Christmas Day or what?
I got up and cried. No, I didn't cry. No,
you're going to say crap yourself then.
Well, no, that was before and after. No, it's just like any other day, really.
You played a stadium gig.
No, when we got there, it was different. No, when like getting up, it was like, it's gig day. Like every gig day is a good day. Like you're gonna put people. It's good. Obviously, a couple more people than what we used to, but getting up, do as you normally do, have your breakfast. I think we got there for like midday or something. Yeah. I think I got up at like 10. So I wasn't in any rush. I was starting to sleep in. It's all going to be nice.
Do you know what was very kind of poetic was that you go up to the venue, you drive in, etc., with all the gear. You see all these massive trucks and lorries, and we're just arriving in our
cars as we did at any other gig.
VW Volkswagens and stuff like that. Yeah, it's proper kind of grassroots band playing with bands that have done it for 40 years and are touring bands. It was quite funny to see the sort of comparison.
Getting in the venue was quite funny because we got there and was kind of asking like, we're in the band, where do we come in? We've been told to get in this entrance, and no one was none of the security were very well informed of anything. And they were like, no, you've got to go this side. And we're like, no, we're here. They're like, no. Not bugger off, you don't belong here. And I'm just like, okay, and then we had to ring someone to let us in.
Yeah, I went down the day before, and to be fair, even when I went down on the day, I was shitting myself almost. I was so nervous, it was unreal. But we did have people around us that that really did help. So kind of took a lot of weight off myself and obviously the rest of the guys who, obviously we just need to basically focus on the performance side of it and nothing else. And we had a lot of really good people around us, essentially.
It was good to be a band, show up, sound check and play as we should. Like we didn't have to worry about any of the little things. If anything went wrong, we had people on side. Everyone was looking after us all day. I think like we obviously really appreciate all like our friends that helped us, and then also the people. They're obviously like managing Def Leppard and Motley Crue and all their crew as well. Like really helped us, really welcomed us. And
honestly, some of the nicest
so nice.
people like you could ever wish to meet.
So nice.
They really are. Like they would actually do anything to help. It might be just because obviously of who I am, if that makes sense. But yeah, I never got that impression.
It felt genuine. Like they did care. They offered us everything, like all the water, towels, just any little.
Did they have
need anything at all?
Did they have a nice canteen?
Oh,
it was in the I don't even know.
It was the catering bit of Bramall Lane. It was like their actual like canteen they have, but they had their own food on. Choir. What was it? What was it we had? What did you have actually?
Salad.
You had salad.
Some nice salad.
We had
three bows.
What's that?
Yeah, there was beverages.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have any.
It's one thing I will say about Bramall Lane is that it's very good for like gigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's well set up.
Unfortunately, I hate to say it, like with Hillsborough, you wouldn't be able to have the same sort of, or basically get that sort of event on.
It's just the way it's laid out. It's not as like the way Bramall Lane's laid out. You walked right round the back to where they had the stage set up, and it was just perfect. Everything was just made for it, almost like it was Wembley. Everything was just.
It's just we're just a Premier League outfit, mate. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Premier League money.
Trying to think of things to come back at. I can't think of anything.
I can't think of brilliant. Yeah. People don't know I support Sheffield United, and that's just where we were. So did you see like Tommy Lee from like Motley Crue and stuff? Like, what were they like? Have you got any stories about
that? They're very to themselves. To be fair, they're very.
So Vince is very. Obviously, I don't know them as people, so I can't really judge them personally. But from when obviously we were there at both shows, Vince was quite quiet. Didn't really see much of him. Nicky was, around. To be fair, Nicky's probably the most sensible out of all of them now.
Yeah, a little bit. Like he's very eccentric and very loud, but I think like how he is on stage is just how he is. He's just very himself all the time.
So Tommy Lee is.
Yeah,
you have to see him to believe him. He's great. He is great. I mean, obviously, if you've not seen the like Def Leppard Motley Crue show, he will come out to sort of front of the stage, and basically because he's Tommy Lee, you can just say, get your tits out and everything, all that, and people oblige.
They'll still do it even in today's age. They'll still do it. Bless them.
Yeah. A lot of power to have that. A lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Did you see him like in the canteen and stuff? I'm just fascinated seeing these massively famous like legends just having a salad in the canteen. I just like the idea of that.
Because this is going to sound really, perhaps over the top, but like Def Leppard and Motley Crue, they'll have their own sort of
meal times and
catering staff, so they don't need catering. Yeah. The catering is more for like
all the crew and other stuff. Now we crossed by him. Nicky was in the canteen at Lytham for a good while and just chatting to people. Like they are again. They're just people. They're just there. They're just there to do the job and just being chill. Like it's.
I'm
looking for a story where they're in one, aren't I? I'm just trying to hang around it a little.
It's actually really like.
Do you know the thing is that when you get to their age, even though they're still mental, they're still like that. When they get to their age,
they're just there to go have a good time, get the paycheck, and like they're there to be in the band. They're there to play and just enjoy themselves. So they don't need to push the boat out or do anything too wild. So
and
don't blame them.
And
that's for us.
Def Leppard have, been quite a tame band anyway in that aspect. Yeah. But with Motley Crue, they are mental, but it's like in terms of the backstage stuff, it's more of a case of just moving on to the next city as quick as possible, just because they've got to recover. They're like nearly 60, all of them. So it's they do have to look after themselves.
Definitely got age on our side.
And what was it like, just as a band, that experience of playing a stadium stage and being that far away from each other? Because when last time I saw you in real life, you were playing Castle. where you're like that, where there's 4 or 5 of you on stage, and then you've got this stadium stage. How did all that, like, how did you feel about all that?
It oddly felt like very natural, not to like obviously like big up ourselves too much, but I feel like we adapted to it very well because it was something we'd kind of planned for and we'd had in our heads, and we'd all like mentally rehearsed, and in practice we'd been like, okay, this is a big stage, we need to use the space we've got, and I feel like we utilized it well.
Put it this way, if we get an opportunity presented like that to us, we've got to work bollocks off to, basically get ourselves into a position where nothing can go wrong, and respect it in a way that, if any other band was in our shoes would, do you know what I mean? So you've got to make sure that everything is just as well prepared as any other band in your position, because there's a lot of fans and people that would want to be in your shoes. So you've got to make sure that, you're respecting the opportunity that's been given to you.
Yeah, well said.
I think the main thing as well is we just set out to enjoy ourselves. Like, it's obviously it's a lot bigger, there's a lot more pressure, but ultimately if we enjoy ourselves and we show that, everyone else is going to enjoy themselves. Like, it reciprocates, just like in any other gig. Like, if you try and connect with a crowd and really just give it all the beans, people are going to see that and go, oh, this is, whether they necessarily like us or not, they'll probably get with it. And it's, the crowd was really good, to be fair. Both shows, the crowd definitely they warmed up to us. I think at the start they were all very like, this isn't what we came to see. And then by the end, most people were pretty on board and getting with it and joining in. It was nice to see.
Well, you're going to get the opportunity to play bigger stages again, because I'm just looking at, you've just announced your tour. So I'm just looking through it now, and this, what size capacity was it? So I know Leadmill, big 350 kind of cap in the Leadmill room there. Castle's like 80 in Manchester. I'm just looking through what you're doing now. So there's definitely an upgrade to the gigs you're doing. I know you're spotting Apollo Junction, Little Man Tate as well on a few of these gigs, but it's a step up again in venue sizes, which is nice to see from a band. It shows progression. Talk us through how excited you are for the new tour that starts on the 23rd of September in Chesterfield.
Cool. Well, like you said, it's a definite step up to what we did before. I think that was always the plan, is kind of doing the groundwork. Obviously, these gigs we've just done have really helped us kind of get people on board and hype them up a bit more. But again, we need to just go out there and like absolutely smash it. And just like, I'm really excited to play bigger venues. And
it is a real privilege, actually, and we're really grateful for these venues, even though, like you said, that they're a bit more of a step up. Not to say, the other ones weren't good, because they were, but these ones are a bit more sort of maybe prestigious in terms of how they're viewed. It's really heartwarming to see that they're sort of talking to us, and we're being offered these sort of opportunities. So it's a case of our work or whatever we do is is paying off in some way, and people are recognizing that.
I think we've definitely earned a lot of respect off people, and our name's got a good amount of weight to it that we can kind of
like
try and progress.
For the Sheffield one with Little Man Tate, that literally came about because
it was the day after, wasn't it? After
no, well, I remember I emailed them at the back end of last year, because I knew that they had the tour planned. Obviously, they had to reschedule, etc. But I knew they had a big UK tour planned, and I emailed them just saying, look, we'd love to throw our name in the hat if you're wanting the support band, etc. Which there's no harm in doing that, just because the worst you're going to get is nothing.
No, yeah.
But actually, they got back to us saying, oh, we recognise you guys from. We had a song that was played. It was basically on the kit launch of Wednesday's kit the other year, and so they recognised one of our songs, and they said, "Oh, you guys are really good. We'll put you on the shortlist," sort of thing. And even though it was really great to hear back from them, we thought, it's probably not going to happen.
But at least they kind of acknowledged us.
But then actually, it did happen. So they got back to us saying, "Look, we want you for Sheffield, and we're going to be main support there as well." So it's quality, because last year I actually went to see them because I was a fan. So it's kind of weird, because actually I bought a ticket to go and see them again in October before we actually got confirmed as supports. So I've got a free ticket if anyone wants it.
Nice. It's great to see, and to get that, and just to make waves. There's no secret really. You've got to graft and you've got to be cheeky. People do tell me that they send tweets to people for support slots and that kind of stuff. And people might think it's a bad idea. It's how you go about it, innit? I'd always recommend it, but don't be a dick. Be nice and humble about it, and don't expect anything. But it's always worth a go.
Yeah, put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah. And just be willing to accept a no. Like, if it's a no, it's like, okay, fair enough. Thank you for getting back to us. Like, you're not going to win every battle, but it's like, if you do win some, it's progress. Like, you never know unless you ask. So,
well, what a progression from speaking to you last time, boys. Proud of you. You worked hard. It's things are happening for you. We'll put a link to the tour in the description of this podcast for you as well, boys, just so people can get involved and find a ticket and get involved with your music and all that kind of stuff. Well done, boys. Nice work. Catch up with you in another 6 to 12 months, something like that, and then just see watch it all go to shit.
We'll see on the streets.
We're behind a bar or bars.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, nice one. So, is there anything else you want to share with us today? Anything else that you'd like to share with the Vivas fans?
We love you.
Yeah. Thank you for not hating us.
Buy all the tickets.
We're poor, please.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Tyler, Kane, thanks for joining us today. Say hello to the rest of the boys too. You're all good lads, and thanks for joining us on this podcast, and we'll speak soon. Nice one.
Oh, thanks.
No worries. Cheers.